My name is Doug, and this is a podcast about knitting, about yarn, about making and creating. And I am coming to you from beautiful Albuquerque in beautiful New Mexico in the Southwest. And this is the second episode, and I hope it's going to be a little bit smoother than last time. And let's jump right into it. I just got back from a very nice vacation in the Caribbean, 2 weeks, really awesome. We spent quite some time in Puerto Rico and also visited a few different islands. I'm super relaxed. I had a great time, and I don't know about you, but when I go on a trip before I leave, I get quite stressed out about what to bring to knit, because I think secretly I worry that I may run out of knits and be like, have nothing. So honestly, I thought I was going to knit a lot, but I only touched 2 of the projects that I brought. I brought 2 pairs of socks, 2 projects that I didn't touch. One of them I showed you in the last podcast, the other one you haven't seen yet. And then I also brought 2 items that I had not started before. I wanted to show you one of the socks that you had seen last time. I knitted a little bit more on these Cyborg's Craft Room yarn. I needed a little more on these when I got back, and I still love them, but it was just a little too fiddly for my taste while I was gone. Still loving the yarn. Just keep going and knitting these. I have both of these going right now. So that was 1 pair. And what I started and finished while I was gone is the cardigan I was talking about last time. I made this with 2 yarns held together. This is a German yarn by the company Lana Grossa Estivo Print, and this is deep vintage, serious vintage stash. It is a yarn that has 75 cotton, 25 rayon content, and in the end I was torn between a 100% cotton yarn and this one, and I decided on this one partly because I was looking forward to seeing the cardigan with the rayon content, because I thought it was going to give it a little more drape, and that would kind of be nice in a cardigan. Also, because I have a lot of green in my closet, I thought, well, why not switch things up a little bit and go to a color that I don't have that much. And I still thought that I was going to be able to wear this with a lot of green shirts and stuff, which of course I will be able to. So the way I made the cardigan is I came up with a stitch count, and I had made one before, so I looked up what I had done last time and used the same amount of stitches. I worked it with 6mm European size needles, held the 2 yarns together. And the way I do the math for these top-down seamless things is, what works for me is I figure out the amount of stitches that I need for the body. Or actually, no, I start off with the amount of stitches that I need for the neckline. Never mind. But then the sleeves are about 1/3 of the amount of stitches that I have for the neck, and also then in the end for the body. So let me just put this on so you see what I'm talking about. And This is not blocked, and I won't block it. I don't think I will. So this goes a little bit past my waist and kind of mid-hip area, and the front slowly, in the front I slowly increased the stitch count, but not with the intention to make a cardigan that can be buttoned up or closed in any way. But of course, I mean, if you get cold, you just pull, all good. Okay, so you saw that, and the sleeve length I decided kind of randomly. That was something that I wanted for myself. 3/4 sleeves, not something too warm, obviously with the open front, and the length also was something that worked well for me. So I did a neck binding. For the neck binding, I did 4 rows of stockinette, and then I did this really nice edge, which I like very much. I learned this in another pattern that in a German pattern, so I wouldn't know how it's called in English, but it is something that where you hold your yarn double. I mean, whatever you worked with before. So mine, I held then 4 strands of yarn for it. What you do is you knit, no, first row you purl 1 stitch, and you slip the next stitch purlwise with the yarn in the front, and on your row back you knit the stitch that you slipped in the row before, and you slip the next stitch with the yarn in the back, and it creates this fat edge that looks like a fat pearl rib bridge, and it's just, I think it looks very nice and very finished somehow. So I did that also on the bottom, and also at the end of the sleeves. So the sleeves obviously were knitted in the round, and for the raglan I decided to, I did my increases every other row, so on the right side, and I did them with yarn overs, because again, this wasn't intended to be a super warm cardigan, and I thought it would be kind of like a nice design feature, or whatever you want to call it. I added 4 stitches at the underarm area here, and what else can I tell you about this? Oh yes, I wanted to ask if there is any interest. Do let me know. I was thinking about maybe writing this up as a pattern to put it up on Ravelry. If this is something that you'd like or you would be interested in, let me know, because I know this is a European yarn, one of them, and the other one is something that's discontinued, so nothing that you could actually get. But if you say, oh man, I've had this fat yarn or something that I want to hold together with a mohair, that would work too, and this would work great for this yarn, and just let me know. And I don't know if I mentioned the needle size, but I made this with 6mm needles, so this was really a quick knit. So very nice project, because I got it finished on time to wear it a few times, several times at night, you know, where it got chilly, and air-conditioned restaurants, so perfect for that. I wanted to show you something else that was also a great wear on my vacation in the air-conditioned rooms, and that is a shawl that I finished a few years ago. The pattern, again, I'm sorry, it's a German pattern, so you're not going to be able to get it, but I believe that Stephen West published something very similar, and you may recognize this stitch pattern. It's nothing fancy. It's I think you can easily find something similar on the internet or in your stitch books. So this is what it is, and it's a wide and fairly long shawl, and it's not a shawl that I have ever worn in winter undergarments because it's almost a little bit too warm and too chunky here because of its length. But I very much enjoyed it at the vacation. And it would be something that you could easily make up to your own specifications, because in this area you increase 2 stitches by yarn over. So you do yarn over, knit, yarn over, and it is worked in garter stitch anyways, so no need to pay attention to right or wrong side. And at the other side of those tip here, you would do a double decrease, and I think it's a 2 together and slip 1 and pull slip stitch over, whatever, that other decrease to mirror that one. And it was really a very nice, kind of like a semi-formal dinner garment accessory that you just wear like this. Snuggle up or just hang it, whatever. I mean, you know how it goes. So the yarns that I used for that, and sorry, Lana Grossa again, German yarn. I think you can get Lana Grossa actually in the United States. I just don't know what is still available. I'm pretty sure that this is a lace print, mohair lace print, which is what I especially loved about this, and that's this section here, is that it changed its colors, not in stripes, but super randomly. So it was a very interesting knit, because the pattern itself is kind of boring because you keep going on and on and on, and it's just forever and ever the same old thing. And then you need to switch the yarns, and you need to weave in the ends, and you know you got a gazillion ends, but because it's 3 different yarns. So this one with the variation, great fun. This is the solid one, which is kind of cool because it's a little bit of shiny and it has a high wool content, even though it doesn't look like that. It looks more like a novelty yarn. And then there is a, wait a minute, here you can see it better. This is a merino lace and also print. I think it's called print because it's variegated. And that also has all these different colors in it, but they're, again, very randomly changing the color from this very dark turquoise or teal to dark gray and a lime green and the blue again. That was really fun with the colors. I did make 2 of these. It was kind of funny because I sometimes do this, that I get all crazy and I go to the yarn store twice when I'm in Germany. I kind of always walk out with something that I just feel like I have to get. And so this was kind of my 2-day before I take off for from Germany back to the USA, last yarn store visit. And I walk in there and I see this thing hanging there. And I fell in love instantly, and I thought, I gotta make that. And then I thought, I gotta make this for my mom also. So she's got one in shades of purple, and that's on my Ravelry page as well. So if you want to look that up, it's really, I finished I think I may have finished this one last year, and Mom's like 2 years ago or so, something like that. So fun project, simple enough. Just pick any kinds of fun yarn and you'll have something awesome. So what else was I working on? My shawl that I talked about last time. In the Mashup by Boho Chic Fiber Company. Let me show you another picture where you can see the whole thing in all its glory. I thought I was going to make it with different colors, but really I loved how the colors played together in the way they originally designed it, and so I decided to go with the natural white yarn because I just had something around, and here it is, and it's actually a mill-spun yarn that a fellow dyer here from Las Cruces in New Mexico, she gifted this to me. It's a non-superwash yarn, and if I had to guess, I don't know, it's probably a DK or a Sport, something around there. So I chose this for the white, like in the original thing, and then I picked my two other colors that I showed you that I meant to make socks of, but of course that is not possible anymore because I'm using up as much as I can. So one, and that is this also, which is the orange yellow and pinkish, is this, and this is a hand spun Color Bug yarns, Superwash BFL. The other one is by Fistful of Fiber, also Superwash BFL. Great colors, purple, green, tealish green, orange, rusty brown. So, and now without further ado, here it is. So for two reasons, I am making this a little bit bigger than the pattern originally suggests. I think my gauge is really smaller than the gauge in the pattern, even though I'm using the same needle, whatever. But I'm a tight knitter, so I'm not really surprised. And also, I didn't want to end up with a lot of hand spun leftover yarns. So I mean, you saw how much of the white I have left, and I just started the last white section here. But I don't really think I'm getting the wingspan that they have in the original piece. Look at this. I don't know. This is the middle, and I'm still not. I don't know. I'm gonna have to measure. But whatever it ends up being, I do have another skein of this. So I may also make the white section bigger because this is what I added. The original pattern lets you start the white after this, and I just kept on going. I repeated these two sections. Then I got scared because I got this. This is what I need for the I-cord bind off, and actually I'm a little worried. I don't think this is going to be enough yarn chicken. Dang, this is going to get me and bite me in the butt, I think. And so I repeated that stockinette section again, and now I'm getting to the pattern, to the charted section. And what I did for that is I counted my stitches and then made sure I was starting the chart at the right point. It was kind of in the middle of I have 4 rows. Wrong side is just knit as they show. So on the right side, I started this in the 5th row of the chart. That way my stitch count worked to fit with the original pattern. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to you probably unless you knit this. But this I'm very much enjoying. So such nice yarn, and the white is also, it has a little bit of a feel like a hand spun. I really like it. So back you go in one of my favorite bags. It's one that was gifted to me by Debbie of Periscoping Sisters when she came to visit in Albuquerque. I love this. Thank you, Debbie. So, travels. I meant to mention something that I thought of this morning because I found this in my nightstand. I had brought from Malta, one of the souvenirs that I brought was this bookmark, and this is bobbin lace, I believe it's called. I just love this so much. It's so pretty. I sadly did not ever see anybody working on bobbin lace, but I've been to, I think, 2 museums where they had the vintage tools in an exhibit. That was really nice. I wish I could have seen someone working on this. I love that. I always thought I was going to learn this at some point, but now I don't think I will anymore, because what do you do with this, right? I'm not a very lazy person. I'm more plain, and I love things that I can use. So that was my souvenir from the Mediterranean, but I also brought something from the Caribbean, and that's going to make you laugh, because I did see a lot of sheep, and they're kind of like, you don't even see that they have any kind of fur, because they better not, because dang, it's hot there, right? I mean, they would die probably from heat stroke. And so the sheep look like goats, and our taxi driver told us that the sheep have the tails down and the goats have the tails up. So that was quite helpful. But we were walking across this old cemetery at some point, and I'm thinking, oh, what is that? I think that's sheep fluff. So I picked it up and I stuck it in a bag, collected whatever I found, and I thought maybe I can make a mini skein when I'm home. I haven't even washed this or touched it at all. And this morning when I opened the bag, I thought, oh my goodness, it smells, all it does is it smells like Caribbean and greens and whatnot. But then I started pulling it apart a little bit to see how long the fibers are, and I want to say just maybe an inch or longer. So I don't think that this is ever going to make any yarn, but maybe I'll try. I'll see what happens. So back in the bag it goes. Another thing I meant to talk about a little bit is needles. So yesterday when I put my shawl on, I had to find a larger needle with a longer cord, I should say, not larger, but a longer cord to be able to accommodate all my stitches. And that made me dig through my needles, and I thought, dang, I gotta show you this too, so you get a good laugh with me or about me, for me, whatever. I have been so it makes sense for you. Is you need to know that I'm not a loony, but I've been knitting for more than 30 years, 40 years. I learned it in school in Germany, where I grew up and spent more than half of my life. And I've been collecting needles forever. I mean, like, not collecting like, oh my God, give me needles, but just, I see them at the flea market, they're cheap, I get them, I add them to my needles. Okay, so I have accumulated quite some needles over the course of time, and so then at some point eBay, when eBay started, I didn't buy needles from eBay, not really, but I ended up buying something which I really adore, and it's this vintage needle storage container. It looks almost like a hatbox until you open it, and it's kind of like 60s, 70s, somewhere around there. Plastic patterned stuff, and then you open it and you have this thing here where you can check the needle size. Look at that. I love it. Of course, this is really American, so I bought this here, and I spent way too much money for it, but you know how it goes. We're all kind of a little bit crazy at times, right? So this is the one where I keep my wooden and the bamboo needles in, and I do not keep the original packaging. I have only one in there, and which is for these needles, which I actually love very much. My mom found these at the flea market and got them for me, and at some point I got an extra cord, and so I kept this. Can you even see that? Sorry about the glare, because it has that tool to exchange the cord and the stoppers just in case. So that's the wooden and the bamboo needles. You haven't seen the half of it. So and this is where it really gets funny. Okay, this is a hat box, again thrifted, and that's where the rest of this craziness happens. Okay. Oh my goodness. So this is all kind of nice as long as you don't try to find something special, because yesterday when I tried to find the 4.5 millimeter needles with the longer cord, oh man, sometimes I end up throwing them out and all on the floor, but yesterday I didn't do it. I just dug through and I looked which could be it, and then I'm pulling out a 5. I think, oh, this could be 1. I try the size. Oh, no. Oh, another 5. Oh, this one. How about this one? Oh, yeah, this is a 4.5, but it's the same length that I already had the shawl on, stuff like that. So these are the 4.5s that I pulled out. So I just bundled them up and made a little gathering thingy with some leftover fabric. But here's where it's really funny. These are the 5 millimeter needles, which made me realize that way back when I knitted sweaters, or a lot of sweaters in my 20s, I think that was really my preferred needle size. I had this thing, I knitted, cast on 100 stitches on 5 millimeter needles and knit a sweater. That kind of thing. Yeah, now I have this hot mess, and what I always want to make is one of these things. I'm sure you've seen these. I think you can make them. I want to make it myself. So you have a hanger, and on the hanger you have a fabric thing hanging down with sewn compartments, and every compartment houses one needle size. So, and then you somehow embroider or whatever, write on the outside what the needle size is. So if you need the 5, you see there's the 5, you grab them all, or you right away see what your cable length is that you need. But what happens is I look for a needle and I think, dang, this is so messy, I can't find it, I should have made the thing. And then I find the needle that I needed, stuff it all back in there, and until the same thing happens next time I'll look for a needle. I don't know if I'm ever going to make one of those things. Okay, DPNs. I have something to share about DPNs. I keep my DPNs in pottery jars. So these are the fat, the very fat, quite fat, and the very skinny ones. Like crazy skinny. Like, what is this even? 1.25 millimeters. Have you ever even seen any of these? How cool is that? Right? Thread knitting. Never used them. Thrift store, probably. And then the thinner ones with the sock needles I keep in this adorable thing. And I have 2 different ways how I keep them, and one is a needle cozy. Isn't that cute? My friend Ulrike made a few of these for me and I love them so much. This was kind of the odd size where I embroidered on the size, the needle size, 3.75. And then I have others that I was too lazy and never did it. They're so cute. I think she knit, no, she couldn't have used Knit Picks Felici. No, wouldn't work. I don't know. So, but what I started doing a few years ago when it made me totally crazy, that I always had to try out the size of the needle because you don't really see it if it's a 2mm or a 2.5, you know. I don't, at least. So I had this splendid idea of doing these things. So I used a wide elastic, whatever I had, nothing fancy, and I never changed the thread. I don't care if it's very pretty, it doesn't matter to me. So any color does, and you don't need to cut it, or it's even better for sewing. Don't cut it before you sew. So you just fold over one end and you guess the width that you need here to accommodate your needles. Make sure you have you have a little bit of a tension so they don't slip out. And then when you're done, you write the number, the needle size on, and this is literally done in less than a minute. So, little nifty thing. And I got a lot of these. See, whenever I use the needle, I made a cozy, or where it bugged me that it didn't have the needle size on. Really nice. Love doing this. I mean, love using that way. So, and then there is one more storage item for needles that I have, which I love so much. So I haven't only bought thrift store needles, but I've also gotten Chowgoos. I think they're called Red Lace, the one with the red cable. Those are my favorite needles for kind of everything, sharp enough and whatnot. And I was lucky enough to win a needle case by Offhand Designs on Instagram, and she makes also a lot of purses, and Larissa is her name. And I think because of the purses I originally followed her, and I had never even seen a needle case like this one, but here it is. It is so well made. I think this is a design feature, kind of this silver stuff, and that cord edging, really nice lining, label. She's in California, and I think this is really originally meant for interchangeable needles, but I don't own any, so I think here you could put in your needle tips, and then you have a lot of compartments for cables, and that's where I put in the whole needles. So I put on stickers again, so I wouldn't save myself the guesswork of the size, or when you're half blind. No, I'm joking. I just sometimes have trouble reading the size when it's on the needle, so that way I can find it right away. And this is, as you can see, I bought a lot of the Shawl needles, and this is actually what I took to Germany this year, with all the needles that I thought I might need, just so I don't need to steal from Mom's needle stash. All right. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Do I want to tell you something else? Well, I told you that I am German, and that's one thing that I meant to mention. I feel like that I'm a part of this line of women who are makers and creators of some kind of art with their hands, and life kind of brought me in the right place, where Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I feel like this is a good place for me to be. I have found wonderful friends here who are all similarly interested in making, creating, and knitting, or fiber arts, or whatever else it might be, sewing, silk painting, and I have and I can appreciate the sunshine and the light here, and which brings out all the beautiful colors in my yarns. Again, I haven't mentioned I'm the dyer behind Shawls. Oopsie, such a terrible business person. Okay, my name is Doug, and I am the dyer behind Shawls, and there is a website called www.shawls.com. You can even sign up for a newsletter there, which you may get only once every 3 months or so. I'm never going to bug you with that. So, but to get back to the subject, New Mexico, so you have all these beautiful colors. It's a beautiful place for me. So that's why I honor with my company name the New Mexican flag with the Zia symbol. And even though outside you may think, wow, where does she get this with all the colors for her yarns? It's not, New Mexico is not colorful. No, it's not. But it has its beauty in another sense. It is a desert in shades of browns and greens, and then you have a spring like this year, and I go out running, try to run 3 or 4 times a week, and I go out there, and this spring was quite moist. We had quite some rains, and all of a sudden you have all these flowers popping up, and it's like a gift that you find out there in the desert. All of a sudden you see yellow, you see pink, you see orange, and you're like, wow, this is so amazing. And the view, I'm kind of up high above Albuquerque, so I'm lucky to see the city on my feet, and to have the beautiful Sandia Mountains right close on the other side. It's just wonderful, and the light is just very inspiring, and very, hard to put in words. And so that's one part of my creating, I feel. And the other part is really coming from this, like I said, from a line of creative women. And among the main people among them aren't even my grandmother, who knitted socks like a maniac. I mean, she would like pop them out like crazy. My mother still has unused socks from my grandmother, even though she died 30 years ago or something. So Mom has them in a box in her closet, and sometimes she gifts them to somebody when they really want that, even though she knits socks too. So back to that. So my grandma was the sock knitter, and I think she taught me some things about socks. But I was closer to my great aunt, and it's kind of special with my personal history, how I have this connection with her, because she lived in her younger years for many years in America, in Cincinnati, Ohio. And when she came back later to live in Germany, she brought a few things, and among them is are some dishes and also some silverware, which I now own and which I brought back to America. Isn't that funny? So she's Aunt Katie, and she was the one who sewed, and she could make garments by measuring you. So she would actually measure you, and then when she started cutting and sewing, before she started sewing, she would have you try it on, and you would have the needles everywhere, and you'd be like all uncomfortable because, I mean, as a kid, you're like scared of the needles that they poke you and whatnot. But she was just, and she was just an interesting woman, not necessarily beautiful, but she was from the inside. She truly was. And I really miss her. I wish I could meet her again. I brought a picture to show you guys. And that's her. I wish I could ask her so many questions now. I think she was very, very young when this was taken. So the other person who was very influential, of course, is my mother, and she has always been very resourceful in her creating, and we didn't have a lot of money when I grew up, and so she would work for this company that made sweaters in the 70s. And if you remember them, they were like this polyester fine machine knit material, and she would actually unravel small knitted pieces and wind them into balls and have like a gazillion knots because it was just a piece, and she would still make sweaters from that. Of course, she wouldn't be like fine knitting, but she would hold several yarns together so you get this whatever melange of colors, and so she would make garments for my brother and myself, and sweaters later also. I mean, it was a different world because you couldn't get things like you can today. You couldn't. I remember getting these color cards from companies that today, the yarn stores, they get them, of course, but we used to get them at home and buy yarns and have it shipped to us. That was kind of a very different world without internet. So yep, my mother. Oh yes, and talking about the last woman in the family who's grown up right now, that would be my daughter. She has knitted, but it's unfortunately not her thing. So she's once made something for her grandma, and so I don't know if it's something that's going to come back to her when she's a little bit older. But so far I've always felt like, she has in terms of getting a usable garment that for herself, there's no need for her to learn to knit, because she can, of course, ask for anything she wants from me. And I will actually show you in another episode the sweater that I am making for her right now. And it's just, I put it aside for now because it's so hot. It's summer, so she doesn't really need it. It's a quite warm one, but so much about that, more another time. So last but not least, and this is very important to me, I wanted to thank you all for stopping by here, for watching, for giving the thumbs up, for leaving a kind and a thoughtful and a comment, and just saying something nice, and for joining the group also, and for telling me giving me encouragement to go on with this, because of course I wouldn't want to sit here and talk to myself, because that's no fun. So I hope that you again enjoyed the episode. I hope I'm gonna see you in the group, Zia Wool's group on Ravelry. I have not been active because I was traveling, like I said, so I hope to see you there soon. Thank you. Until next time. Bye.